You spent too much time giving your all. You devoted yourself when no one asked. You cared when no one noticed. You went deep while most barely scratched the surface. And as much as you pretended it didn't hurt, it hurt. Because all you wanted was to be seen, acknowledged, chosen back. Then, out of nowhere, someone arrives. Not to make promises, not to impress, but to offer you naturally exactly what you've spent your life giving. This someone listens to you, embraces you, gives you attention, presence, respect, effortlessly, without demand. You feel it. It's not an exaggeration. It's real. For the first time, it's not you carrying everything on your shoulders. It's not you trying to save another story that was already broken. Now there's a balance. There's reciprocity. And it's not about intensity, it's about equilibrium. About finally breathing peacefully within a connection. You deserve it. You always did. Don't waste it. Value it. You gave too much. And that's not a compliment. It's a realization. You offered presence even when you only received absence. You stayed even when they left doors open for you to walk away. You understood silences, accepted halves, swallowed what hurt, smiled on the outside, even when you were exhausted on the inside. You believed in people who never committed. You showed care, even to those who never knew how to appreciate it. Maybe deep down you thought that persisting made you stronger. But it wasn't strength. It was loneliness disguised as resilience. How many times have you heard a thank you? How many times did you feel chosen and not just a convenient option? How many times did you feel someone cared for you with the same intensity that you care for others? The answer is there, in the fatigue that never fades. In the feeling of always being one step behind. In the emptiness of not being seen with the same care that you offer. You became support, period. People got used to your giving, to your listening, to the fact that you tough it out. With the way you always resolve everything, even when no one asks how you're doing. You slowly stopped waiting. You stopped demanding. You started to settle for the basics. And you found yourself thinking, maybe I really expect too much from others. But the truth is different. You just wanted reciprocity. Something fair, simple, essential. And it was in that place of silent exhaustion that someone appeared. Not with promises, but with actions. This person didn't ask you to change. Didn't judge you for the wounds you hide. Wasn't scared of your intensity. And most importantly, didn't leave when your pain started to show. This person stayed. Even on days when you shut down. Even during phases when your patience was hanging by a thread. Even when you thought you didn't deserve so much. They stayed, watched you calmly, listened to you attentively, respected you even in silence. And it was then that something inside you that had been dormant began to awaken. You started to receive, not as a prize, not as a reward for everything you've endured, but as what it should have always been, as the bare minimum you deserved, and that had never arrived. You received affection without having to beg, attention without having to prove yourself, love without needing to be perfect, affection without weight, without obligation, without games. And maybe at first you were suspicious, because you're not used to being treated with this kind of care. You learned to doubt, to anticipate abandonment, to see signs of rejection before they happen. But this time it wasn't your mind sabotaging you. It was different, it was real. This person returned you to yourself. They didn't come to save you, but to remind you that you never should have lost yourself trying to save others. They truly looked at you, not in a hurry, but with presence. And you, even without completely understanding, felt something you hadn't felt in a long time. Safety. Not the superficial security of empty promises, but the kind that comes from consistent gestures, from the word that stands firm, from the "I'm here" that remains even when everything in you screams for escape. Now you have the chance to relearn how to trust, to receive without guilt, to exist without carrying the world, to love without needing to erase yourself, and this takes courage. Because accepting care, after years of surviving on crumbs, is scary. You'll find yourself testing the limits, trying to see how much this person can take. You'll want to sabotage, you'll think about giving up. You'll doubt your luck, your life, everything. But this time, hold on tight. Because maybe, just maybe, you're facing the most honest relationship you've ever had. The one that begins when you finally understand your own worth. It's time to stop begging for crumbs. You no longer need to plead for attention. You don't have to carry dead relationships on your back. You don't need to live in fear of being too much. Someone has arrived. And they didn't ask for anything, they only offered. With sincerity, with consistency, with affection. And you recognized it. Because that's exactly what you've always been for others. The difference is that now finally it's for you, and what to do with that. You can run away. You can say it's too soon. You can repeat that it's all good alone, or you can choose to stay. You can allow someone to take care of you the way you've always taken care of others. You can, for the first time, accept being a priority. Without guilt, without fear, without a mask, you're not hard to love, you've just been loved the wrong way. And now life has decided to show you what it's like when love comes with maturity, presence, and truth. The pain from before does not invalidate what has arrived now. You still carry scars, but they do not prevent you from starting over. They do not make you less worthy. They do not make you too difficult. Those who truly see you are not frightened by your traumas. They embrace, they respect, and they help to transform. Yes, it will be difficult. Yes, it will be scary, but it's worth it. Every gesture of care that you accept now is a step towards healing everything that hurt you before. You're not being spoiled, you're being cared for. Stop confusing affection with excess. Stop thinking you're bothering someone. You've spent so much time diminishing yourself that you've learned to feel guilty just for existing intensely. But now it's different. You've found someone who doesn't shy away from your depth, someone who listens to even what you don't say, someone who offers real presence, not just when things are fine, but especially when they're not. Value it, but don't idolize it. Don't turn this relationship into an altar. Don't lose sight of who you are. But above all, don't sabotage what does you good. Don't throw it away out of fear of what could work out. You've waited so long for this kind of affection. Now that it's here, have the courage to embrace it. Without armor, without tests, without escapes. The right person isn't perfect, but they stay. And you know it's real because there's no euphoria. There's calm, there's building, there's choice. Loving truly has never been about suffering. It's about finding someone who looks in your direction and doesn't blink, who stays when the world shakes, who holds your hand without making a fuss. That person has arrived. And they're doing for you what you've spent your life doing for others. Now it's your turn to accept, to feel, to be cared for. You've planted, you've endured, you've had patience. You've carried the weight of others' absence with a strength that few recognize. And now, life returns to you. Not with grand gestures, but with the essentials. A love that doesn't demand but offers itself. A care that doesn't weigh you down, but lifts you up. Don't run away from this. You deserve exactly this kind of peace, and now with all of this before you, what still holds you back from allowing yourself? Maybe it's fear, the fear of betting on something that might crumble again, of giving yourself up and discovering that it was just another well-constructed illusion, of letting your guard down and being hurt in the only place where you still feel sensitivity, affection. But understand, when fear leads, it traps. And have you ever been stuck for too long in stories that only demanded from you? Stories that took more than they gave, people who confused your commitment with weakness, who took advantage of your willingness to stay, even when everything told you to leave. This new presence, this one that arrived without asking for space, but knew how to respect yours, didn't come to repeat cycles. It came to interrupt the pattern. To show you that not everyone will use you, suck you dry, and disappear. You need to understand this once and for all. There are people who love genuinely. There are people who care with sincerity. And even more importantly, there are people who will choose you every single day. It's not about intensity, it's about consistency. This person doesn't smother you with promises. They show up, they are present, they support you. And this is the hardest part to accept when you've lived through disappointments, that someone can indeed love without hurting you, that someone can indeed stay without controlling you, that someone can indeed want you without belittling you. You will sabotage yourself in the details. You will think that things are moving too fast. You will look for flaws, inconsistencies, signs that everything will fall apart. But none of this is a sign that you're wrong. It's just a reflection of someone who spent too long trying to be accepted in places that never deserved you. breathe. Don't confuse the new with the old. This care you're receiving now, it's not a scam. It's not a trap. It's not disguised loneliness. It's someone truly seeing you and still choosing to stay, without trying to change you, without stifling what is intense, emotional, even excessive about you, without running away from your chaos. And yes, you may not know what to do with this, because until now you've only learned to deal with rejection. But now perhaps you need to learn to embrace acceptance. And it's hard, because affection, when it's genuine, hurts. It hurts because it touches parts of you that you buried. It hurts because it makes you realize how much you endured things you should never have accepted. But it also heals, from the inside out, in the right time. You don't have to prove anything. This person has already seen who you are, with your flaws, with your fears, with your messy truths. And yet they chose to embrace you, not because you have potential, but because you, right now, just as you are already enough. You don't have to force yourself to be likable. You don't need to hide your pain, nor do you have to fit into a mold to be accepted. You just need to be real. And as little as that might seem, it's everything that someone who truly loves wants. So for the first time, don't ruin it. Don't sabotage. Don't take out on the person who is offering you a new beginning what others have done to you. Don't push away what you've longed to have close. This person isn't perfect. They will make mistakes. They will irritate you. They will say the wrong things. They will have tough days, but they will be there. And in the end, that's what it's all about. Someone who doesn't abandon you in the middle of the storm. Someone who holds on tight even when you try to let go. Someone who understands that true love isn't just made up of good moments, but of the constant decision to keep going. You now have two options. Close your eyes, hide away again, and pretend everything is fine on your own. Or make space to live what has always been denied to you, a bond where there is exchange, respect, and presence. You are not difficult. You were just misunderstood. And now perhaps someone is finally willing to understand you without haste. Accept this as a deserving gift, not as an exception. And if you still have doubts, look back. Remember all the times you gave your all, the nights you stayed awake waiting for a message that never came, the times you held up an entire relationship while the other person didn't even move, the forgotten birthdays, the unaccounted disappearances, the promises that turned into absences. You've been through all of this. You survived. You rebuilt yourself. And even after everything, you still had the courage to love. Now the least life can offer you is someone who makes it all worthwhile. Enough of carrying twisted links. Life is showing you that there are still people who love with maturity, who don't need to destroy you to make you feel something, who don't put you to the test, don't play with your affection, and don't disappear on the bad days. The person who has come along may not be spectacular in the eyes of the world, but they are exactly what your heart needs. Someone who offers you the same kind of love you've always given, and now it's up to you. Either you accept this chance, or you keep carrying the burden of relationships that don't see you. Have you made it this far? Then I know. This text spoke to you, because deep down, everyone has been in that place of giving too much and receiving too little. Everyone has a story that started with giving and ended in silence, and everyone at some point asks, will someone ever love me the way I love? If that doubt still lives inside you, take a breath. You are not alone. And maybe you don't have to wait so long anymore. Maybe that someone has already arrived. Perhaps now is the time for you to allow it. Allow yourself to be cared for. Allow yourself to be a priority. Allow yourself to receive, not as a favor, but as part of a fair exchange. And if that still seems difficult, that's okay. Healing is also about time. But start here. Don't run away from what does you good. If this text touched on something you don't usually say out loud, comment down below. Share your story. How many times have you given everything and found yourself alone afterward? How many times have you felt that no one saw how much you were giving? Write. Vent. It doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to be true. This space is for that, for people who feel too much and pretend too little. And if you know someone who is going through the same process, someone who has already given up on believing in reciprocity, send this video to that person. You might be exactly the sign they're waiting for. Oh, and before you leave here, subscribe to the channel. This is just the beginning. We still have a lot to discuss about things that no one talks about, but that everyone feels. Leave a like if this message resonated with you. It helps this content reach more people who need to hear this right now. And share it. Spread this text into the world like planting a seed, because when we share truths, we help someone feel less alone. And in the end, that's what we're looking for, right? To be seen, to be felt, to be cared for, by someone who finally understands what that means.